silly, but I need to like. That's that's true. הנה מה טובו מנעים שברחים גם יחד. 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 O Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, and in thanksgiving I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Ve'asuli mikdash ve'shachanti betocham. Ve'asuli mikdash ve'shachanti betocham. O Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, and in thanksgiving I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Shabbat Shalom. It is so good to see all of you here and the many people who I know are on YouTube Live watching us in our multi-access services on this fine 4th of July weekend. Wishing everyone not only a Shabbat Shalom, but a joyous American holiday weekend. You know, when times are tough, when you might get some news that's not to your liking, it's so important to have community, and it's so important to be able to just stop and tend to ourselves, our community, our relationship with each other, our relationship with God, our relationship with ourselves on Shabbat. So I welcome you all to do that with us today. I'd like to invite Mike Cohn to come light some Shabbat candles. And Mike, could you bring a siddur for me while you're coming? Mike, could you bring a siddur for me? I've got like 4 books on my table here and no siddur. Candle lighting is on page 301 in your siddur, if you want it. Thank you, Mike. Hi, Ruthie. Shabbat
Ruthie,
shalom.
You're good. Yeah, you do it. You're a girl. You're supposed to do it.
I would like whoever will light the candles.
Whoever
Yes,
wants
I'd
to.
love for you to do it. Everybody light the candles. You too, Craig.
Would you like me to read too, or?
Go ahead. Yes, read something.
Read something? Okay. Another week of work is ended. Again, Shabbat brings welcome peace. We pause from our labors to let Shabbat give another dimension to our lives. This Shabbat candles are symbols of the holiness we seek. Their brightness dispels gloom and lights a path to faith and hope. Their glow reminds us of the sacred bonds that link us to our people over space and time. Their radiance summons us to fulfill our people's mission, to cast the light of freedom, justice, and peace upon all the world. This is the hardest part. I'm old-fashioned.
These matches actually work. Let's sing as we take in the light of Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Thank you, Emrys, Mike, and Ruthie. We now continue our service with Shalom Aleichem on page 13. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaShaarei, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We continue with Lecha Dodi, page 21 and 22. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad, U'shemo echad, L'shemu tiferet v'litila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki hi mekor haberacha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshavat tchila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Hitorari, kiva orech kumi ori, uri, shir daberi, kivod Adonai alayich nigla. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'v'tzola, toch emunei am segula. Boi chala, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. You may be seated. We continue on page 23 with the Psalm for Shabbat. And we'll be doing the second and third lines, beginning Tov Lahodot Ladonai. Tov Lahodot Ladonai, Tov Lahodot Ladonai, Adonai. Ulizamer, L'shimcha elyon, tov lehodot l'Adonai. Lehagid baboker chasdecha, lehagid baboker chasdecha. Ve'emunatcha baleilot, ve'emunatcha baleilot, tov lehodot l'Adonai. Lehagid baboker chasdecha, lehagid baboker chasdecha. Ve'emunatcha baleilot, ve'emunatcha baleilot, tov lehodot l'Adonai. Tov lehodot l'Adonai. Tov lehodot l'Adonai. We continue on page 27 with Chatzi Kaddish. Please rise and have your Siddur supplements ready after we finish Chatzi Kaddish on page 5 with Am I Awake? Yitgadal ve'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, ve'almad divrach irutei, ve'amlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon, u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, b'gala b'gala, u'v'zman kariv, V'imiru, Amen. Yehi Shemei Rabbah Mevarach, Le'alam u'l'olmei almaya, Yitbarach, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitromam, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shemei Dekudesha B'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, ta'amiran b'yama, v'imiru, Amen. Yadidai-dai-dai, 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 yadidai-dai-dai. Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Baruch et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Yadidai-dai-dai, 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 yadidai-dai-dai. Yada-dai-dai-dai, 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 yada-dai-dai-dai. You may be seated. The blessings that precede the Shema include what we're about to sing, Ahavat Olam, on page 29, which is a blessing that is about God's love for us. And unlike what may be our experience with human love, this is a love that never ends, a love that is as eternal as God. And God's expression of that love is the Torah, giving us guidance and wisdom and intellectual challenge and spiritual growth throughout our lives. So let's sing Ahavat Olam on page 29. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu, b'shokbeinu uvkumeinu, nasiyach b'chukecha. V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, u'v'mitzvotecha, le'olam va'ed, ki hem chayeinu, ve'orech yameinu, ubahem negei yomam v'layla, ve'ahavatcha al tasir, mimenu le'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. We don't usually take a break between Ahavat Olam and Shema, but tonight we're going to make an exception to that practice because there is an interesting link between this prayer, Ahavat Olam, and this week's Torah portion, Chukat. Chukat is one of the many words for law that appears in Ahavat Olam and that appears in biblical Hebrew. It's kind of like, I don't know how true this is, but there's a saying that I've heard that you want a language that has many different words for snow, look to the Eskimos or the Finns or somebody who has a lot of snow, and that snow is such a major part of their lives. And in biblical Hebrew, we have many different words for laws. So, just in Ahavat Olam, which we just sang, in the second line, with Torah umitzvot, Torah is not only the name of our book, our scroll, and much larger than that. It's also a word for law, in the way of teaching. Mitzvot, mitzvah is a law, like a commandment. Chukim, a chuk, that is the one that's related to this week's parsha. That's another kind of law, a chuk, and we'll get back to that in a second. Mishpatim, mishpat is another word for a law. As you can see at the end of the third line, bichukecha, that's another variation of chok, like chukim. Hebrew does a lot with different suffixes and prefixes with roots to make different words. So what is this chok that is in our parsha? So this is, and it gets this definition from our parsha. This is described as a law for which human intellect is inadequate to understand. You would never have our great teacher say that it's irrational or that it doesn't make sense, but you would have our teachers say that it's maybe supra-rational, that only God could understand them, that human intellect is inadequate for understanding them. Why would they say this, and why would they attach it to this week's parsha? I'll tell you a little bit about it. So let me read you the first verse or two of the parsha. Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe ve'el Aharon lemor. And God spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, Zot chukat, there's the name of the parsha. This is the law, HaTorah, of the Torah. Asher tzivah, another word for law in there, that Asher tzivah Adonai lemor, that God commanded to us, saying, Daber el b'nei Yisrael, speak to the Israelites, the children of Israel, Vayikhu elecha farah aduma, and instruct them to bring a red heifer, a red cow. Tamimah, pure. What does a pure cow mean? Asher ein ba mum, asher, on which there is no blemish or defect. Asher lo ala aleha ol, that never had put upon it a yoke. And then it goes on. I'm not going to keep reading it to you this way. And so you could tell that this would be a very, very rare, unusual animal. That it's not just go bring whatever cow happened to be there. You have to scour throughout many, 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 many cows to find a red cow on which there is no blemish, that had never had a yoke on it. This is not something that would be a dime a dozen in an agricultural society. And what do they do with the cow? They're going to kill it, of course. They're going to sacrifice it. But it's not a regular sacrifice. It's a ritual of purification. So this is for people who become ritually impure, which was of great concern in Torah era Israelite history, ritual purity. And it was such a great concern that there needed to be ways to help those who became impure, and there are many such ways in the Torah. For example, coming into contact with a dead body would make you ritually impure. Fantastic. How do you become pure again? There needs to be a way so that people aren't, when people were deemed themselves or were deemed by the Kohanim, the priests, impure, they couldn't participate in some of the spiritual rituals of the people. And so it was very important to be able to regain entry. And so they took this red cow, they burnt it. First they drained the blood. They used the blood and the ashes of the burnt carcass to sprinkle on people, and they would, voila, become pure. And in case you were thinking that is what is so mysterious and hard to understand about the Parsha, that's not it yet. The thing that was hard to understand is that it says at the conclusion of this ritual that the priest who conducted the ritual became impure. So how could one animal that is used, the remains, to purify also cause impurity? So that's not a bad explanation, but I'll repeat Emrys's explanation, which is it transfers the impurity from the people to the priest. I can't think of it, but the rabbis had some objection to that view, and said that this is just something that cannot be understood by human beings. And they actually were quite defensive about this and several other things. Another example of a chok, something that couldn't be understood, is kashrut. Why does the Torah say that, you go to vacation up in Maine and you're not supposed to eat a lobster? It doesn't use exactly those words. Or why, there have been many explanations given, such as hygiene, and those are not true explanations. Those are trying to understand something that can't be understood. Why does the Torah say, eat this and not eat that? It's not for health reasons. It's for spiritual reasons that only God knows that we don't know, according to the tradition. So, and the rabbis of the Talmud and throughout history were quite defensive about these laws, saying that they're a cause of ridicule of our religious competitors. Other religions say, why do they have that law that makes no sense? And it's also was a cause for concern because once we were out of the era where there was a temple and sacrifice, the whole idea of ritual purity and impurity became 90% irrelevant to life. So why are we studying a Torah that has so much that's not relevant to life? And I'd like to give an answer to that from the Hasidic tradition. Because the Hasidim were very, very sensitive to this issue. They were, we see them as religious fanatics who are very traditional. But when they first arrived, they were revolutionaries. They were the radicals, and not in a right-wing way. They were the radicals saying, the rest of our rabbinic colleagues in Poland are pulling out their hairs and splitting hairs, coming up for explanations for all of these things that don't really matter in our lives. That can't be the meaning of Torah. God can't want us to study Torah about things that are irrelevant to us, that are only of intellectual interest. So here's an example of what one of them did with this verse. This is from a work called the Me'or Einayim, which means the light of the eyes, from Rabbi Menachem Nachem of Chernobyl. Yes, the same Chernobyl that had a nuclear spill. That was a very, very strong Jewish center in the 19th century. So, what does he say? He says, you take this verse and says, this is a metaphor. This is not about a cow. This is not about whether or not people thousands of years ago could be pure or impure. This is about us in the Torah and our relationship with God. What is the cow? What gives us nourishment, like a cow does to the calf? Torah and God through Torah. So he says this. This is to that Torah called by your name, the revealed Torah of Moses, they have said, take a perfect red cow, the flowing source that shines within Torah, called red because of its brilliant color and inconceivably pure light. Then it would be perfect, the wholeness that God intended for it. It may also be called perfect in the sense explained by the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidism, who said that the hidden light remains perfect in innocence, since only very few people have ever reached it. The Torah of Adonai is perfect. That's a verse from the Psalms. Torah Hashem Tamimah, which uses one of the same words as our verse, providing a link. That means that the quality of Torah that is called the Torah of Adonai and not the Torah of Moses remains pure because so few have trod the path to it or reached its rung. So what is he saying here? He's saying that Torah is something that you don't just learn once and you're done with it. That it has ever higher rungs of understanding and different kinds of understanding. And that this spiritual understanding of cleaving to God, a spiritual understanding of a verse that might have a very sort of prosaic kind of literal meaning, is the highest rung of Torah, and very few people reach it. But in these generations, meaning his time, which, your own time is always seen as kind of lousy, right? Every whole person has to make an effort to get there. This is what the verse means by saying having no blemish. Blemish is a lack, and the Torah of Moses is lacking until the whole person becomes aroused to be attached to the quality of godliness. I'm paraphrasing a little bit because it's hard to understand. Why is that? Because the cow, or she, has never been yoked. Such a person has not yet taken on the yoke of heaven's kingdom and thus become whole. The yoke of heaven's kingdom is the way our tradition talks about accepting the commandments in the Torah. And actually, the prayer that we're about to say, the Shema, is called in many of our sources, Ol Malchut Shemayim, acceptance of the yoke of heaven. That Judaism has responsibilities. And so accepting that yoke is the only way to wholeness, according to Rabbi Menachem. So having said that, we don't need to understand every detail of what he was getting at. To me, the important part is that the Torah yields, if we want to probe underneath the prosaic and try to get to something more spiritual, that's something that's in our tradition to do. Having said that, let us, I wish that we all accept the yoke of heaven in our own way that is right for us according to our Reformed tradition. And let's do that now, saying the Shema together. Page 30. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha V'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol me'odecha v'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinatam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha Uvlechtecha vaderech, uv'shochbecha uvkumecha, ukshartam leot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot bein einecha, uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha. Page 31, 6 lines down, 3 words in. Leman tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim le'elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'elohim ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem Emet. Let's now continue in the Siddur supplement on page 7 with Nothing Can Compare. Nothing can compare, nothing can compare, nothing can compare, nothing can compare. Standing on the other side of the sea of reeds, I'm beginning to believe we really can be free. Walking on the ocean floor like walking on the air. Nothing can compare with this, nothing can compare. Say Let's go back to the Siddur now on page 34 for Vishamru. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael hashabat lasot et hashabat ledorotam berit olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael hashabat lasot et hashabat ledorotam berit olam. Beini ubein b'nei Yisrael oti leolam, oti leolam, oti leolam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael hashabat lasot et hashabat ledorotam berit olam. Sheshet yamim asa Adonai, asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael hashabat lasot et hashabat ledorotam berit olam. Vayom hashvi'i shavat vayinafash, shavat vayinafash, shavat vayinafash. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael hashabat lasot et hashabat ledorotam berit olam. We now turn to page 35b in the Siddur for the Amidah, and we rise. We're able. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agita hilatecha. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agita hilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, ve'Konei Hakol, ve'Zocher Chasdei Avot, Umevi Goel Ivnei V'neihem, Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Ufoked Umoshiach Umagen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Abraham, Ufoked Sarah, Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei metim atarav lehoshia, Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechayei metim berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofei cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar, Micha mocha ba'al gevurot, Umido melach, Melech meimit umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah lahachayot metim. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hametim. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. Please continue privately, either using the words on the page through page 38 or the prayers in your own heart and mind. We continue on page 38 at the end of the middle paragraph with Oseh Shalom, our prayer for peace. And I like to always remember that when we're talking about shalom, peace, in our prayers in Judaism, yes, we are talking about lack of violence and war and the absence of those things and harmony between nations and people, but we're also talking about wholeness and peace within ourselves and our own hearts. That if we've been having some personal struggles or struggles with the news of the day, I know this has been a rough couple of weeks for many people. The shalom that we're asking for is also shalom from those struggles caused by whatever we find disturbing. Oseh Shalom Bimroma Oseh Shalom Bimroma Huya Aseh Shalom Huya Aseh Shalom Huya Aseh Shalom Aleinu. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. Oseh Shalom Bimroma Oseh Shalom Bimroma Huya Aseh Shalom Huya Aseh Shalom Huya Aseh Shalom Aleinu. one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. It's now the time in our service where we think of those who need our prayers of healing. It's not in here. Okay. Would someone like to share the name of someone who they're thinking for a prayer healing? Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. In our congregation, we're also thinking of Michael Barker, Phyllis Burke, Pereza Budd, Arthur Campbell, Tony Casella, Valerie Frank, Jonathan Gardner, David Glazer, Jonathan Gardner, Jay Kelly, Cheryl Leahy, Nancy Meyer, Tal Schechter, Albert Schechterman, Michael Schreiber, Cindy Sherman, Iris Sherman, and Yonina Bat David HaKohen Vasara. We'll sing our Mishaberach prayer. It is on the inside back cover of your Siddur. Mishaberach Avoteinu Mikor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach Imotenu Mikor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Let's turn to page 148 and read together a prayer for our country. Our God and God of our ancestors, we ask your blessings for our country, for its government, for its leaders and advisors, and for all who exercise just and rightful authority. Teach them insights from your Torah, that they may administer all affairs of state fairly, that peace and security, happiness and prosperity, justice and freedom may forever abide in our midst. Creator of all flesh, bless all the inhabitants of our country with your Spirit. May citizens of all races and creeds forge a common bond in true harmony, to banish hatred and bigotry, and to safeguard the ideals and free institutions that are the pride and glory of our country. May this land under your providence be an influence for good throughout the world, uniting all people in peace and freedom, helping them to fulfill the vision of your prophet. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they experience war anymore. And let us say, Amen. Okay, let us continue in the Siddur on page 51 with Aleinu. Please rise if you are able. Aleinu leshabeach la'adon hakol, la'tet gedula le'yotzer bereshit, shelo asanu kegoyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu kemishbechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, Lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu shehu noteh shamayim v'yosed haaretz u'moshav yikaro b'shamayim mima'al u'shchinatu zo begovei meromim u'Eloheinu einot Emet malkeinu efes zulato, kakatu b'torato, v'yadata hayom v'hashevota elevavecha, ki Adonai hua Elohim, b'shamayim mimal, v'yal haaretz mitachat, Einod, v'ne'emar, v'haya Adonai, lemelech al kol haaretz, bayomahu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad. You may be seated. We now recall the loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have taken into our hearts with our own. Our congregational family remembers with special affection our loved ones whose Yahrzeichen will occur this coming week. Anne Krull, mother of Ira Krull. Daniel Morgan, brother of John Morgan. If you are remembering someone this evening, we invite you to say that person's name aloud now. Zichronam livracha. May the memory of all our dear ones be a blessing. Is anyone here saying Kaddish tonight? Since we have no one saying Kaddish here tonight, plus we don't have a minyan, we're going to skip Mourner's Kaddish. If we had a need, we would find a way, but since we don't have a need, we will not stretch Jewish law to find that way. Let's continue on page 54 with Adon Olam. Oh, actually, let's do announcements first. Craig? We invite up Craig Barger, our congregation's president, to offer some announcements.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Welcome to TCS, where we value innovating education, building community, honoring individuality, drawing meaning from Judaism, and upholding our social responsibility. All our programming, including the ones I will mention today, reflect these values. Tomorrow there is no Torah study, no morning Torah study until August 20th, when the rabbi comes back.
But you could still study the Torah just without Rabbi Ken.
Without him, that's correct. Yes. After all the services at 7 p.m. Family Table is sponsored by the Jewish Family Services. Its mission is to alleviate hunger in our community in a way that meets nutritional and spiritual needs. Our temple is committed to collecting 30 cans of tuna fish and 30 cans of low-sodium vegetable soup each month. Please remember to bring your cans when you come to the temple. There is a wooden container in the foyer for your canned goods. Remember, information and links to all activities are included in your weekly emails on Mondays, as well as special notices. Please remember to return your name badges to the drawers in the foyer before you leave. Thank you, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Craig. And now we will continue on page 54 with our closing song, Adon Olam. Oops. Adon Olam, Asher Malach B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra Le'et Nasa, V'chefzo Kol, Azai Melech, Shemo Nikra, Azai Melech, Shemo Nikra, Ve'acharei, Kichlo Takol Levado, Yimloch Nora, Vehu Haya, Vehu Oveh, Vehu Yiyeh, Betifara, Vehu Yiyeh, Betifara, Vehu Echad, Ve'ein Sheni Lehamshilo, Lehachbira, Beli Reishi, Beli Tachlit, Velo Ha'oz, Ve'hamisra, Velo Ha'oz, Ve'hamisra, Vehu Heli, Ve'chai Goali, Ve'tzur Kevli, Ve'etzara, Vehu Nisi, Umanos Li, Minat Kosi, Ve'yom Ekra, Minat Kosi, Ve'yom Ekra, Ve'yado, Avkid Ruchi, Be'ein Ishan, Ve'a'ira, Ve'im Ruchi, Keviati, Adonai Li, Ve'lo ira, Adonai Li, Ve'lo ira. Shabbat Shalom. Let's continue with Kiddush and Motzi out in the foyer.